Before we begin, thank you very much to a familiar name, Joseph S., for joining the Patreon campaign over at patreon.com/TJOmega. We got really close to unlocking the Beast Machines episode reviews. Unfortunately, we had a few people drop out before the end of the month, and that is entirely understandable. I know things got real expensive in the last month. All that sucks. Nothing you can do about it. Always the first rule of my Patreon campaign is take care of yourself before you take care of me. Not a big issue. Hopefully, we can get some people pulled in and get Beast Machines reviewed next month. But for now, we'll be doing a hiatus on the episode reviews once we finish up with Beast Wars Season 3. But that is for later. For now, we have a topic to discuss. And the topic is female Decepticons, which doesn't explain why we are looking at Arcee. Arcee is what you think of when you think of a female Transformer. She is the most prominent from G1 because she's the only one that was in the main cast. Previous to that, we had female Autobots in one episode, and that was it. Later on, we would get flashbacks to an older Cybertron that showed more female characters, but we didn't really have that many to pick from, and absolutely no Decepticons to pick from. That is what we are here to find out. Who is the Arcee of the Decepticons? Or at the very least, who deserves to be the de facto female when it comes to Decepticons in Transformers? Because we have one for Autobots, it doesn't feel right that we don't have one for Decepticons. And while we've had a whole bunch appearing in fiction over the years, none have really stuck around that long. So I ask of you, who should it be? Now, I did not come unprepared. We have a list of candidates that we need to go through and discuss a little bit one by one. And that starts with what I think is the most common one to come to, and that is Nightbird. Nightbird herself is the first female villain that we had seen in Transformers, especially as a robot. It's the first time a female robot was battling against the Autobots. Sure, her episode is noteworthy, because she is a very powerful robot, and yeah, of course, if we're talking seniority, she's definitely got a very strong case to make. The downside to her, of course, is the fact that she's not actually a Transformer. Nightbird was designed by a human who thought that the best way to help the world was to design a 30-foot tall steel ninja, who was also female for whatever reason. I don't judge. I have no idea why, but hey, it did give us a female character in Transformers. There's in a time when they were incredibly rare, but she can't really be a Decepticon. Anytime you see her now, she's had 4 toys since her appearance. So today, retroactively, she is a Transformer. 3 of them were redone from Arcee. 1 of them was redone from Chromia. So, never had a mold of her own. In fact, she has a Masterpiece toy coming out. She's only been in 1 episode, and she's getting a Masterpiece toy because they needed something to remold Arcee into. Yeah, it's an interesting case. So, if you're just looking at vintage characters from G1, okay, Nightbird is a good pick, but you really don't see that much of her. She really didn't even return to fiction with a voice until the last breath of Cyberverse. So it's hard to really pull anything from that. If we're talking female characters in general who happen to be on the evil side, then we got to talk about Black Arachnia. I find her to be one of the best written characters in Transformer history, with a fascinating story arc in Beast Wars. And of course, as far as height of villainy goes, I don't think there is a female Transformer that reached higher than her. She almost won the Beast Wars herself if it hadn't been for a sneaky Tigatron. Femme Fatale, very devious, very cunning. She is proven as a very skilled physical combatant as well as a tech head herself. So physically strong, mentally strong, character personality, Very strong. Not above manipulating even the ones she cares about if it means getting what she wants, which is usually freedom and survival. She does have a very big, prominent depiction, and she has reappeared in media quite a few times. We saw her, of course, in we saw her in animated as well as a main Decepticon, and then, of course, in comic books she keeps appearing. Now, there's there's that little caveat that we're looking for a Decepticon, and here I've gone with a Predacon, who is only retroactively a Decepticon. The original Black Arachnia we know would eventually be a Decepticon forcefully during Universe 1.0. It wasn't until animated that a Black Arachnia was properly depicted as a Decepticon. Also, we're trying to pick a villain here, and she did turn good, so I think that kind of puts her out of the running a little bit. So, Black Arachnia is probably like the most prominent female, but definitely has her faults. So, if we're sticking to Decepticons, and we're still looking for first, we have to go to Night Racer. This one, admittedly, not the strongest candidate. She is a very obscure character, very limited release, hasn't appeared in any major fiction, barely appeared in any minor fiction. She is on this list, and she has a claim to stake, because she is the first Transformer ever sold in any official capacity that was intended as a female character. She is mostly a GoBot Bumblebee remold, and a retool. It uses multiple parts. But the point is, she has seniority as a female Transformer toy that was released. She is, unfortunately, exceptionally obscure. Probably not in the running here. Also, her creator is certifiable. I could have a whole thing. I could do a whole video just on her. I would recommend going to Night Racer's TF Wiki article and following a few links so I don't get in trouble for libel when I talk about my thoughts about her. But she's a trip. She's worth looking up, just as a peek into the fandom of 1995. So this has a place to be noted, but admittedly not a strong candidate. We can look at another BotCon exclusive that also has a minor play, or a minor claim to this title. Shadow Striker was the first time they ever retooled parts for a convention exclusive, and the first time they had ever retooled a figure specifically to make it female. Night Racer went from like a male toy and was cast as, depicted as female, but no remolding to reflect that actually went on. Shadow Striker and the sibling Roulette was the exception. So she does have some credibility to that. She is a very rare Autobot to Decepticon heel turn, which I thought was a really cool touch. But the trick to her is, of course, again, limited exposure, not a very major character. So she has a claim, but a very weak one. Also, it doesn't help that her name has been usurped by a far better Shadow Striker, so this version is basically forgotten about. We can take a look at that Shadow Striker, and we will judge her candidacy as well. So this is from Cyberverse, of course. She does have a very unique look to her because she is asymmetrical. In this artwork, this is mostly how she looked pre-Frankensteining in Cyberverse. I didn't have like stock art of how she looks when she's in her like asymmetrical design, but it is a very unique look, and one I kind of wish they did a little bit more often. And she is a very efficient character. She has a very dark backstory. One that really does enhance her and explain her cruelty and her villainous nature. So I like it when my villains have plausible cause in their backstory that lets them be who they are on screen. We are looking for a female Transformer who is worthy of being a default, comparable to Arcee in that oh, we're using a female character for the Autobots, we're going to go with Arcee. We're looking for that with the Decepticons. I think, in the future, there might be a place for that for Shadow Striker here. For now, she's far too new. So she doesn't have enough time under her belt for that role, but I think she could grow into it given the chance. Let's look at one that has had some time. Still a newer character, but not drastically new at this point. Slipstream. I think this is one where I go, if I had a Defacto Decepticon female, this is going to be the one I think of immediately. She is probably the most capable villain out here. She didn't turn face like Black Arachnia. She is her own thing, which is ironic for a Starscream clone. But she does have the ability to be a credible threat all by herself. That's what makes her a good villain. She's also a recurring character, so we've seen multiple takes on Slipstream. She's been in games and she's had multiple toys, not just like Starscream retools, but a Windblade retool in there just to mix it up. And yeah, she appeared in Cyberverse as well, where again, she actually had some depth to her character, especially in her last episode, which kind of hate that it was her last episode. I would have really liked to have seen where she went from there. But again, I think this is the one that I think of the most when I think of female Decepticon, just because she's so memorable and animated, and she has made her way into other media, which is kind of rare for these females. You'll notice that, we only have one Shadow Striker. Nightbird was never used again, until, the very end of Cyberverse. Night Racer never used. The original Shadow Striker never used. Very, very sporadic. But to see one that's recurring, that automatically gets you very, very high on the list of de facto Decepticons. So, beyond that, I kind of have to pull a little bit. So just for the sake of variety, just for the sake of talking out our options, I'm going to throw Strika in this conversation as well. So again, not a Decepticon. She is a Viacon, so that is already getting in the way. She is like Black Arachnia in that in later depictions, in animated and in Cyberverse, she is cast as a Decepticon instead, just to simplify things down. And again, like Slipstream, she has escaped her original media, and we've seen her more often in other forms and in other stories. She might be Alpha Strike sometimes, but she is still the character based on the original Beast Machine's incarnation. We've seen her used to great effect in IDW 2.0, where she's one of Megatron's main enforcers. All pretty freaking cool. So Strika is actually making this little resurgence. I wish she got a toy out of Cyberverse, because I really liked her design in that series, but is what it is. I will just accept the fact that they didn't forget about her altogether. And yeah, they wanted to use Strika, but apparently that's not available. So Alpha Strike it is, I guess. She is a very imposing character. She is a tactical genius. Megatron specifically picked out brilliant strategists, like the best generals of Cybertron's history, is what he used to create his two new Viacon generals in Season 2. So she has a great credential for being a big-time villain. Her big downside to that, however, is the fact that in her proper depictions, she is not loyal to Megatron or any Decepticon cause. She serves Megatron and Beast Machines because Megatron is Cybertron. She is loyal to the planet. She protects the planet. That is her loyalty, not necessarily Viacon, Decepticon, anything. Later depictions, Cyberverse, that's not so much an issue, but at the core of her character, that's what we're going with. So I do have to kind of work that in. So I do think on that regard, she's a little bit of a weaker candidate. She's somewhere in the middle. Now, I could get going on like this forever. There's tons more female Decepticons out there. There's plenty we could have this conversation about. You can make a case for Nickel from IDW 1.0. IDW 1.0 added a ton of female Decepticons all by itself. So, I don't really want to get too far into that. What we're trying to do is just focus on the main candidates for who a de facto female Decepticon could be if the Decepticons chose, actually had one that was like a constantly recurring female villain, the same way Arcee is. I want the default. And I have my own choice. I have my own choice, and none of you are going to agree with me. No one is. I will make a case. Black Arachnia as a Decepticon without her face turn as a new incarnation, she's probably the most prominent. She's probably the one you would use. Slipstream, I think, is probably the best candidate. She gets a few points lost because she's basically just a female Starscream. She would need a little bit of a more unique look to her. But my choice, if I had my way, and you're going to hate this, I would probably pick Crasher from GoBots. Oh, this is not place. Okay, so for starters, she's not a Transformer at all. She's from the competitor. She's a GoBot. We are going to get this out of the way. So the cartoon of the GoBots is co-owned by Hanna-Barbera and Hasbro. Hasbro themselves 100% owns the designs that they use, the character designs from the cartoon. If they wanted to make a modern day Crasher that looks exactly like the one you see on screen right now, legally they absolutely could. And the one thing that stops them is, aside from the fact that it's a competitor's design originally, but what stops them is the fact that they don't own the original toys. That's Machine Robo, that's Bandai of Japan. They might get in trouble if it's too similar. If they try to do Psykill, for instance, Psykill's got some pretty iconic looks and not really any way you can remix it. So they're kind of stuck. You're probably never going to see that. Crasher, on the other hand, I could definitely see you embellishing the design enough to be able to actually release. We saw that in the 07 movie line where they released Fracture, who was supposed to be Crasher in the Classics line, never really made it there because the movie line needed more toys to fill out shelves, and because they were selling too fast, like they had to shuffle something else into that line. But also the name Crasher didn't pass legal, so it had to be Fracture. These days, the legality in Transformer names seems to be looser. They seem to be more willing to put like Autobot, Decepticon in front of things. I think they could get away with it now. But you think about the character herself. She is a prominent primary villain character in her series. She is what you think of as a transforming female character from the 80s in that original G1 timeline. Time period, I should say. You see, she is the bruiser of the team. She wasn't coddled or softened like Arcee tends to be. No, she is the scary one of the team, the cackling mad one. She's the one who will crash into you, transform, and then just punch you to death. A female bruiser wasn't even a concept in Transformers until Strika. They took that long to do it. But more than that, I feel like she's the only female shape-changing robot that's been around as long as Arcee, technically longer. And technically, yes, she is officially a Transformers Hasbro character. They'd have to switch her up, they'd have to tool and play around with her own design, but they could get away with it. We see with Thrilling 30 Whirl and Roadbuster, modern Shockwaves and Jetfires, Hasbro doesn't shy away from making toys that are based on previous toys that they used but didn't actually own. This, I think, would fall under a similar category. Maybe a little bit more careful, but I think there's a realm of possibility where they could get away with this. And I feel like if you're trying to match Arcee's long-term credibility, Crasher's your only choice. I feel like she definitely needs plenty of appearances under her belt, but I do think she could be an appropriate rival to Arcee as far as de facto female Decepticons go. So now that I've completely thrown this out there and screwed everything up by throwing a GoBot in the mix, let me know what you think in the comments below. Who is your de facto female Decepticon? Is it in the candidate list that I have described, or is it someone I have completely missed and forgotten about? Let me know. I'm actually curious about this one. And yeah, thank you for watching. Remember to hit like and subscribe on your way out. It helps the channel a lot. And I will see you on the next video. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.